Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have my friend and colleague, Kelly Travis, joining us today. She is a health and success coach who helps ambitious, high achieving women prioritize their health and well being so they can reach new levels in their business and their life. Through her Ascend Mastermind, Kelly helps women build confidence, up level their physical, emotional, and mental health, and have fun. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you, Kim, for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Well, I like to keep it real. And so Kelly just told me before the show, she has a 5 and a 6-year-old running around the house right now. She's a single mother. She is a businesswoman. And I mean, you're like going to be speaking and preaching to my people who many of them feel completely overwhelmed by
Mhm.
motherhood, completely overwhelmed by trying to be this, person that they think they're supposed to be. So I can't wait to dive in to today's topic, but I want you to take us way back and tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you become a health and success coach? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't like shiny little unicorns and, glitter along
Right.
the way.
I definitely didn't step into this naturally. Well, I guess I did, but it took a while to get here, right? Like all
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start with college, really. I was recruited on scholarship to run in North Carolina. Always a competitive athlete, very driven, but grew up in like a household or a family of women who criticized their bodies constantly. Nothing was ever good enough. You know, that message was always there. I went to school, and unfortunately, like a lot of athletes in different, things that they're working on, no, um, we we had a coach who thought that the smaller you were, the more successful you would be. So after my first year as a freshman, he came up behind me, Kim, grabbed the back of my arm and said, "Travis, you've got some fat back there." Now, mind you, I was an athlete. I was running a ton of miles. And at the time, I was like super proud of like, I loved lifting weights. I felt, I was like feeling okay about things. But that crushed me. And it continued from there, where he not only told me I needed to lose weight to get faster, but he wrote up a contract. And at 19, my parents were in Michigan. I was in school in North Carolina. It was like, okay, well, this makes sense. If I can get to the Olympics by doing this, let's do it, right? I mean,
Right.
ridiculous. And so within a year, my last race was as an All American. It was at Nationals, but it was my last race. I had to drop out of college. I was admitted into the hospital with a really severe eating disorder. And I remember when I was in the hospital thinking I had to have a PICC line put into my heart. And if anybody knows what that is, it's painful, but also scary. And I remember thinking to myself, making a promise, if I can get through this, I will spend my life helping women with their mind.
Oh,
And it took me years to get to that place, right? Here I am. And it took me quite a long time to fully recover. Like, if you know anything about the mind and the body, like, yes, you can like gain the weight and you can do the things, but if you don't do the work that's happening up here in your head, there's a disconnect. And so I studied mental health and public health. Like, I created my own degree and like went that route, and then and did an internship around it, and worked with women. And then when I got out of college, there were no jobs. So I ended up in social work for a while, and then surprisingly in corporate, becoming a publisher and a marketing director, like a total swing. So I spent 10 years in corporate, and I like was really good at my work and my job. I've always been very driven and goal oriented, but also seeking external validation, right? And I still hadn't done the work on accepting myself, being okay with myself. So I was just constantly looking to prove myself. And I found myself pregnant on the bathroom floor, crying and realizing I had to get my shit together. And so that was kind of the first moment. And I was in an abusive relationship. So at that point, it was like, okay, Kelly, like, let's get this together. You're bringing another life into this world. And so that was the beginning of the kind of shift for me. I realized I was in a job that I was miserable in, even though I was successful. I was in a relationship that I, had stepped into because I was in a bad place, like all these things. And so eventually it took a while. It actually took till I had my second son for me to fully make the shift. And so when he was a little over a year, I left my relationship, started my business, and went full blown into working with women. So I kind of did all of it, did the work on myself, went back to school, got some additional like certifications, and just went full on into it. That's the
And
short
yeah,
version.
but there's so many correlations to your story. So I was like a very successful track runner in high school. And so
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, 28 years later, I still hold this record for the 400-meter
Yes.
dash.
Yay.
And I have this track coach that I really love him. And he's like 80 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Coach Bussy, and he was so passionate about helping us do well. And I think that mindset was because he would literally, I was 96 pounds as a freshman. Okay. Like I was a bag of bones, but he would come in the lunchroom every day to make sure I was eating tuna.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And so like,
Yes.
it's kind of like, it's so crazy now when we think about somebody doing that now, but like back then, you're right. It was just kind of like, you're just going to do whatever you're told because
Yeah.
you want to be successful. And when you're driven, you'll pretty much do whatever you have to in order to attain that success or what you think is
Mm-hmm.
success.
What you think.
And then,
Yes.
yeah, your story, like I got married and had a baby, and 2 months later, parted ways with his father. And so it's always interesting to me that those of us who are kind of in this coaching realm, it's because we've had to coach and do the inner work ourselves.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that we have it all figured out, it at all. It just means that we kind of embody that which we know and want other people to do as well, to do the
Mm-hmm.
darn work on the inside of themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And so let's just jump right in. Like when you talk about like doing mindset work,
Mm-hmm.
tell us about that. Tell us about why do we have it backwards? Why are we like all about the outside of ourselves instead of the inside? And then what does that even look like for my listeners to do mindset work?
Yeah. Well, I know for me and most of my clients, the fact that we hide from doing the work up here and like the emotional piece is because it's hard and it's
Yes.
scary, right?
And it
So we don't
hurts.
want to go there. It's so much easier to just like get on into autopilot and like be like, okay, well, this is okay and I'm fine. And that doesn't really exist over there, right? Because God forbid we approach that, because that could be crazy scary. And it's really also the fear of like, what if I find out I'm not happy in this career? What if I'm really recognize I'm miserable in my marriage? What if like I discover my health is really holding me back from all these things? And that's scary. That's a very difficult thing to confront. And I ran, like literally ran from that for years. And I was unhappy. And so, I think the first thing to ask yourself, if you're in this place and you're hiding, right, and you're focusing on all the external things because that gives you the quick fix, that makes you feel good, like what could potentially be on the other side of the scary stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like what was on the other side of the scary leaving my relationship with 2 little boys was a lot of freedom and so much like less anxiety and stress and like happiness, right? And I was so much healthier after that.
Yeah, but you did have to make some really tough decisions, and you had to
Mm-hmm.
endure some major suffering in order to make that change. And
Yep.
I feel like I do think that we we tell ourselves this story that good enough should be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, it's a good enough marriage. It's a good enough relationship. It's a good enough job because it pays the bills. And I'm not saying everybody needs to leave their marriages, but what I'm saying is I feel like, and I'd like to know your take on this, but I think good enough is actually a problem. I think that
Mhm.
good enough is putting the Band-Aid on things that we need to deal with. And that when we pull that stupid Band-Aid off and it hurts like hell, but that when we go in and we do that really deep stuff, it really shows us like how true and deep and real and beautiful that life can really be if you're willing to go to the shadow side of things and in order to, achieve a different outcome.
hmm Yeah, I love that you brought this up because my podcast is She Doesn't Settle, and we talk
Oh,
about this
that's
all the
right.
time. But good enough is safe, right? It is safe and it's comfortable. And if we're going to talk about the brain likes to feel safe. It doesn't want, like, anytime we consider change or taking a risk, the brain's like, whoa, sister, slow your roll. Like, that's not safe. Like, cheetah is coming, right? That's what it thinks. And so it holds us back. And that's when the excuses and the resistance all steps in. And we just say, okay, you know what? It's okay. The other piece to this, and the thing I think is really important to highlight, is women have a really hard time admitting that they're not happy. There's so much guilt around it, right?
I am so
And so
happy to
if
hear you
I
say that.
so I always say it's okay. You can be grateful for what you have and also want a hell of a lot more, right? Like,
Yep.
we can honor where we're at, but
Yep.
we also should not be afraid to say, you know what? I want more. I need more. This is not enough.
Yep.
But we have
Actually,
so
there's
much
two
shame
things
around that.
that, right. And I think like we don't even know how unhappy we are because we won't even allow ourselves to get real with our unhappiness.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Mhm.
if we do confide in a friend and we say like, well, I'm feeling really frustrated in my relationship and he works all of the time and yada, 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 yada. And then the next thing a woman will do is they'll be like, but he's a really good dad and he provides for us
Yeah.
financially. And they start to justify. And
hmm
I don't know about you, and I don't know if this is something that has just probably grown and evolved and developed within me, because I know that sometimes it's like, well, even my mom, whom I love so dearly, she'll be like, gosh, Kim, you're just kind of hard on Scott sometimes. You're just kind of hard on him. And I'm like, her hard is me stating what I want out of this relationship and not putting up
hmm
with the BS that sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just
Yep.
not going to tolerate that. I am from a different generation. And when my husband and I have that difficult conversation, it feels really good. It's not easy to do, but it feels really good afterwards. And so like,
hmm
I'm not going to adopt the philosophy of like, you know, just be grateful for what you want and don't move on from that, you know?
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
teach people to be happy in the now, which is find your happiness
Yes.
right now, no matter what, while also
Yep.
reaching for your goals.
Yes. Yes. And if we're not, then we're just staying stuck. And I doubt any of your listeners are in this, like, to just stay stagnant and not have any momentum to move forward and get better and to feel their best, or to, be in the things and the places that make them happy. And, that was the realization I had. It was like, okay, what am I doing? Right. And when it came to my business and those shifts, it was like, if I am going to be away from my kids for a certain amount of time, then I want to be doing something that I love. Right.
Yes.
Um, and then if I want to show up my best for my work and for my clients and for my partner, I need to feel good. So my health has to change. But we've got to get to that place, and we've got to slow down and get quiet enough to do that work. And that's the part that most people run away from.
Yes, I love that what you say because it is putting our own well-being to the forefront, even as
hmm
mothers, even as daughters, even as employees, understanding that in the midst of all of those other responsibilities, we are allowed to put our well-being at the forefront.
hmm
And a lot of our listeners, they're in jobs that they're really unsatisfied in. They
Okay.
really are. They don't have that thing that lights up their soul. And I mean, what do you suggest for people who are going through that?
So I really love to have people visualize or allow themselves to dream without restriction about what life could look like and what, like, happiness would look like. And I think probably you talk about this since your podcast is about happiness, but the idea of creating goals around how we want to feel instead of creating goals around what the expectation is, right? Like I tried the traditional route. Like I got married, I had kids. Well, I didn't do it exactly that way, but you know what I mean? Like I did all the things that we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Got the 401k, did all the things. I was not happy. I was working towards other people's goals because I thought that that would make me accepted, would make everybody happy, like I would fall in line. And it turns out I don't work that way. And many of your listeners probably don't either. And it comes down to identifying first, how do I want to feel? Like what do I want to experience a year from now? How do I want to be feeling? Free? Do I want to feel calm? And then what job, what role is going to provide me with that, right?
Yep.
And then, of course, like what's most important to me in my life and making sure all those things are in alignment. That.
And exactly. But I think that even that particular piece that you're telling them to do, which you're right, we talk about that ability to visualize and decide how you want to feel, but even getting you to really remove all of those layers and really truly ask yourself, like at the heart of your heart, what is it that you most desire? And then more importantly, what is the feeling that is associated with that desire? How do you want to feel? How do you want to feel in your job? How do you want to feel in your marriage? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel in your body? All of those questions, I think that's a great starting point, Kelly, is just start asking yourself the question and see what comes out,
Yeah. I love to start with the end in mind. But here's the thing is when we do that, when we have those conversations with ourselves, I call her the mean girl. She gets really freaking loud, right? Like,
yeah, mine has a name. Her name is Ethel.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. So we've got mean girl Ethel on, one side. She's loud, she's dramatic, she's intense. And then we have our soul sister who's very quiet and gentle. She's, just pushing us along, right? Very, but we can't hear her because mean girl is very loud, right? And so when we're doing this work, we have to be conscious of the fact that she's going to get loud because she's scared and she has a lot of doubt, right? We have so much doubt. We as women, we carry around a lot of guilt and shame for wanting more. We've already talked about that. And then we have so many old stories around what we can and can't do, if we're worthy, if we're good enough. And so acknowledging that that's going to show up and then doing the work to shut that up is really important, which I think is kind of really relevant right now too, because I think that what's going on in the world globally, we've already got this like foundation of insecurity and self-doubt and negative self-talk. And then now we've been put in these environments and these situations where everything is just heightened. So it feels like, oh my God, now you're telling me to like think about what I really want. I just want to go outside.
Right.
So there's that other layer. Like, I just want to go for a run by myself and I can't. But the most powerful thing that I think we can all remind ourselves of right now is we have a choice. We always have a choice. Because the brain pumps out a thought based on the experience that's happening around us, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a shitty relationship, a crappy job, a pandemic, and we have a thought about it, and that thought triggers how we feel and what we're going to do about it. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that we can choose a different thought to get us to a better place in the moment. Because right now, and even in times when we're like really feeling a lot of things around not being happy in a job or with our health or relationship, we can start to think too far into the future and make stuff up and catastrophize and do all that stuff. And it doesn't do us any favors.
Yeah, I love that because that's a very simple skill. So basically, you're going to have the thought, And then you
Mhm.
got to acknowledge the thought, because we know if you try to push the thought away and you just go grab yourself some Hostess cupcakes to get rid of the thought because you don't like the way that it makes you feel. So you
Yes.
have the thought and you see yourself going down that road, and then it's catching it, right? It's catching it and saying, "Oh, there I am again. I'm in scarcity mindset. I'm in total self-doubt. I'm making up all of these reasons why this is a really bad move." Which even the
Mhm.
reasons your logical brain comes up with, you somehow convince yourself that those are very rational reasons, right? Like,
Yes.
well, I could never do that because we need my income. But in fact, you could do it because you're probably not going to die if you decide to take another job, or if you decide to try to chase your dream job and it doesn't work out. It's probably not going to
Mhm.
end in death for you, right?
Right.
But like
Right.
our brains say, well, these are all logical reasons. I can't do this to my family. We might have to sell our house and all of this stuff. And what you're saying is catch yourself having the thought, and then
Mhm.
you get to make a choice. What is the
Yes.
next thought that you want to have?
Yep. What's going to bring you back to a place where you can function, right? I mean, right now, it's like if we're talking about what's happening right now, we just need to bring ourselves back to being right here. You'll appreciate this, Kim. I talk a lot about like relating what's happening right now globally to running a marathon. We need stamina for this, right? But if you think about running a marathon, the goal is to keep yourself in the mile you're in and not to think about any other miles. Because if you get to mile 14 and you start to say, oh my God, I'm in mile 14, my legs are cramping, I feel awful, I want to throw up, you've still got 12 miles left. So you've got to focus on the mile you're in and also acknowledge that even in that mile, you're going to have some swings just like every day, right? Like you're going to be like when I ran my marathon, I was like, oh my God, I feel awesome. Awesome. And then within like 30 seconds, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die. Like you're just back and forth. But that's what's happening in life, right? Especially
Yes.
right now where we're like, we wake up in the day, we're like, okay, I've got this. I got it. I got a plan. I got a schedule. I'm going to knock it out of the park. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're like, holy shit, how am I going to do this? Like you're just up and down. And honestly, I'm giving myself permission to just move through it, but also not be too thinking about anything beyond today. And I think this is also relevant when it comes to thinking about our goals. Like you identify the goal and then you come right back to today. What can I do right now? What is in my control? And based on the goal, there are so many little like behaviors you can do just in the day to feel like you're in control, to not get yourself all the way to the end, like freaking out about what you have to do to accomplish it. And instead, stay present with where you're at and slowly make moves to get there.
When you think about that, it makes complete practical sense, right? So like, how much energy does one spend worrying about things that may or may not come to fruition? And
So
so
much.
I love that. And I love, of course, I love the marathon analogy, but I love it because it tells our listeners that, hey, if you think the goal is to get to where life is just phenomenal all of the time, that's not a realistic goal. We will always have the yin and yang of life,
Mhm.
the good and the bad. That's just going to be life. But for me personally, and I kind of want to know what's different for you, but by putting these habits in place in my life and putting specific kind of non-negotiables, I feel like when I do have the dip, I'm not there as long. I'm not in the dip
Yes.
as long. Do you feel that too?
Mhm. Yes. So there's research that states that if you allow a feeling to sit with you for 90 seconds, it will hang out. You just hang out with it. Hey, what's up? Name it, whatever, acknowledge it. It will go away. And then when it comes back, it will be less like aggressive, right? And you'll be able to manage it and move through it. The problem is we have been taught that we're supposed to feel happy all of the time and that we can't have these other full like ranges of emotions, and so we push everything else away and we have like and then we get into trouble and we find ourselves like going down the death spiral.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we have to get honest, like you can't have happiness without sadness. You can't experience
Exactly.
anger. I mean, you're not going to experience like joy without anger. Like we have to have both. And I'm sure you've talked about that because you're speaking to happiness all the time. But I think, yes, it lessens the blow, but also just acknowledging that it's okay to feel those things as long as we don't like bathe in them, right?
Right. And I
Like,
love that. Like, give yourself the 90 seconds or whatever it is to feel the way you do. Because, like, I mean, I'm having negative feelings right now, Kelly. I am having negative
yeah.
feelings at times around my business or around the economy or just, but like for me, I let myself feel that yuck, but I really do make sure that I feel it temporarily. And then I go, oh, wait a minute. My thoughts create my feelings, and my feelings create my reality. So I'm
Mhm.
now going to reach for a more abundant thought,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And
Yep.
so, okay, I love this. And I'm going to kind of veer off in a little different direction that's still somewhat tied because I
Yeah.
want to hear your take on this. But one of the things that I really feel like happens for women is women try to be, it's kind of like in Glennon Doyle's new book, Untamed, right? So she says, like, women try to be so good, right? They try to be good partners and good
Mhm.
daughters, good mothers, good employees, good friends. And, we're all striving to kind of like try to be this great version of who we're supposed to be to everyone else, when in fact we kind of abandon or leave behind like that part of ourself that wants to just be whoever she is. And so, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously in your life, you, like you said at the beginning of this interview, you played that role of trying to like follow the path that leads to success. And then
Mhm.
finally getting to a spot where you had to do things like you had to leave your husband and you had to decide that you were totally raising these children pretty much on your own. And then you somehow made this courageous faith to start your own business, this big ass leap. Um, like for you and for any of our listeners who are like, yeah, I just, they don't even sometimes know or understand, we don't, how much of a falsehood that we're putting out there that is really so disconnected to how our soul wants to show up. And I'm talking like this because I did this for years and years myself. I mean,
Mhm.
I tried to become who I thought I needed to become so that I could be loved and accepted by everyone. And I lost myself in the process.
Mhm. And it creates so much anxiety. Like people pleasing, trying to be accepted is one of the biggest reasons that we have so much anxiety, right? And overwhelm. And I think it's a process. It's not that easy, right? We talk about this, but like it took me a long time to be able to just fully become who I am and be okay with it and really embrace who I am. And I'm telling you, the reason that I was able to do that is because I made a lot of mistakes. And
Yeah.
so I think that the message is um, to take the risk because you're never going to know until you do it, right? And progress, I think is it Marie Forleo that says progress over perfection or something along those lines where
Yeah.
it's like, you know,
You can't wait till it's
if
all
I
perfect to launch that baby or to go after that
yeah.
dream.
No, and when I like I am kind of known for just taking so when I was younger, I was referred to as a gypsy because I like travel, like I would move all the time, and I was really just running away from problems. Like I was just traveling around the country to get away from things. Now I no longer do that. But I think that like we've got to really just be okay with making mistakes, and if it's like you're afraid you're going to let somebody down, acknowledge you can ask for forgiveness later. If you're afraid that you're not going to do things perfectly, something is better than nothing. Like you're not going to learn until you actually engage in the process. And we don't understand who we are until we do that work and we get really curious and kind of test things. And I'm sure that knowing Glennon, I haven't read that book entirely, but she probably talks about how like she had to just explore and and just finally come to the terms with the fact that she wasn't fully happy with where she was at, and to let go of any other people's expectations of her.
Yeah.
which is what really
It's
drives
funny
us.
because I don't have it completely figured out myself. Of course, none of us do. And I'm still a work in progress. And I was reading something that Paulo Coelho, who wrote The
Mm-hmm.
Alchemist, wrote.
Yes.
And I'm going to paraphrase here, but he said something like sometimes people will actually attract negative circumstances and outcomes so that they are allowed to play the victim again.
Yes, I was just talking to a client about this. It's a false benefit. Like we create stories around why we're doing this thing because there is a false benefit. And
Yes.
it happens so much because it's safe. It doesn't matter if it's like miserable, it's just safe.
And
Yeah.
I do real talk on this show, and so I'm just going to tell you how it stung me this morning because and I don't want this to be misinterpreted, but I'm going to speak my true voice here in that there's this little part of me that from a selfish standpoint has kind of liked what the coronavirus has done just to me and my business. Like, I know that sounds really sick because obviously, I don't like that my income's been taken away temporarily
Right.
or that I'm not able to fill my calendar. But I identified this morning after reading that, Kelly, what it was. I'm super ambitious. I'm super driven. I am someone who has an activator as my top 5 core strengths. I make shit happen. You do, yeah. I have competition, woo, activator, futuristic. We'll have to compare that later
Yes,
because
yes, yeah.
we could be soul sisters here or each
That's so
other's worst
funny.
enemy. But the reason I could identify that I was like, why do I feel a little bit of a sense of relief? And you know what it is, Kelly? It's because if my business does fail, now I have a reason why.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's what I was having a conversation with my client before this about because she's having some health issues and she uses that as the reason that her relationship could fail. Like she's blaming that. And so we had to go through that process, but you're so right. And I commend you for even sharing that because I know that that takes guts. But Kim, that's also, it's like having the guts to just go to those places and to see what happens.
Yeah,
Like, okay, I'm gonna dip my toe in.
it just blew
Mm-hmm.
up in my face. And I was like, okay, Kim Strobel. So here's the deal. What you now need to figure out, your new work is to figure out how to remove the the part of your ego that is still sabotaging your own inner peace. Because
Mm-hmm.
like if my business fails, it's not going to be a failing because of the coronavirus, but I'm going to be able to attach it to that. It's really that Kim
Mm-hmm.
Strobel failed because we know that other businesses are able to figure this out and flourish. And so if I
Mm-hmm.
have to get real honest with that, then that becomes who is Kim Strobel without her business? Who is Kim Strobel without her success?
Yes.
Who is she
Yes.
without the paycheck? And so again, I
Mm-hmm.
know enough about this thought leadership work to do the work on myself, but it
Yep.
really like it's like Paulo like slapped me across the face this morning because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
holy shit, that's why I've been kind of like la-di-da-di-da, like I've been busting my ass, but there's this part of me that is kind of being too relaxed about the coronavirus and it's pissing my husband off a little bit about me. And so I just figured it out.
I
Oh my
love
gosh.
that.
We could talk
I
forever.
I know. I will share. I'm always, encouraging people to look for opportunities in the mess, right? And when we set goals, I'm always encouraging people to look for potential setbacks or roadblocks that they could come up against during, the process of going after their goals. Never do we ever consider a pandemic being a roadblock, but it is. And so last night I found myself like I had a really rough day yesterday. It was just tough, like with the boys, homeschooling, trying to juggle everything. And I was feeling sorry for myself. And I thought to myself, okay, where is the lesson here? Like, what am I supposed to be learning right now? What's the opportunity? And I thought, well, I felt sorry for myself as a single mom running a business before this. So maybe the lesson is like, it wasn't really that bad. I don't know. I'm like trying to figure it out. But I want to encourage everybody, like just constantly ask yourself, what is the lesson here when things are feeling really shitty? or you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're falling into the victim piece, like, what's the lesson? Where's the opportunity?
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I had to do actually with this whole thing
Yeah.
when it came down a few weeks ago. Normally, I go into total action mode. Like I got to figure this out and we've got to make things happen and I need to create this new
Mhm.
thing. And instead, I gave myself the grace for like the first time in my life. I gave myself the grace to just not know really what I was supposed to do. And by doing that, it allowed my mind to settle. And then that's when we decided, hey, this is what's going to happen. And here's all the steps. But like it took me about 10 or 14 days to figure that out.
Mhm.
And so there is great grace in being able to do that and say, hey, what could be the potential golden nugget that I can't see right now that's there, but I have to keep sifting for it and figure it out.
Right. Right. And I think now it's an opportunity for people to turn inward and really go like, okay, what do I need to work on during this time? Like, is it reprioritizing my health? Is it like working on my relationship? Is it getting serious about the goals?
Yeah.
All those things. Like, we've just got to figure out how to shift our perspective.
I love that. That's great
Yeah.
advice. Well, where can people find you, Kelly? Where can they connect with you if they want to know more?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on social media at Kelly T Health, and my website is kellytravis.net. Also, why don't I give you a freebie? I have a little downloadable like guide to I think it's called 5 ways to positively manage your emotions.
Oh,
So
that
it
would
could
be
be
so
relevant right
helpful
now.
for my people. Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
drop that in the show notes.
Yeah. So a little gift to you all.
Oh, thank you so much. So I always
You're
end
welcome.
every podcast by asking this. And so this, knowing
Oh,
that you
God.
have been, I know, in the throes of like trying to manage all of this and single motherhood, but I'm still gonna go for it. I want to know what's one way Kelly is reaching for more joy in her life right now.
I love this question. I am really looking at right now as an opportunity to witness my little boys, like just to spend time with them in a different way. And that has been the reminder like, I need to step back and slow down and say, okay, this is a gift right now. They're in school all the time. You've complained that you don't get enough time with them, because you're trying to juggle. So it's really just trying to enjoy being with them as much as I can.
I love that. And I just have to tell our audience members that I'm sitting here looking at Kelly, and one of her little boys keeps popping his head on the screen, and she has to keep shooing him away. I love that we're keeping it real here, Kelly.
We are. Oh, yeah. He likes to make an appearance. He is the one who really loves that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your insight on how we can manage these emotions and give ourselves a little bit of grace and try to stay in the present moment rather than all of that anticipatory anxiety. Thank you for your
Hmm.
knowledge and your wisdom. And just, it's been a real honor. So I appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.